Good morning, everybody. My name is Rob Moore, Member of Parliament for Fundy Royal, and I am the Conservative Party Shadow Minister for Justice and Human Rights. I want to thank you all for joining us here today. Thank you also to my colleague, Garnett Genuis, who helped organize this event this morning. I'm joined today by Canadians who are concerned about the Liberal government's sudden plan to expand medically assisted death to those with mental illness. This would mean Canadians whose sole condition is depression could be offered medical death. This is a significant expansion beyond Bill C7 as it was debated by members of Parliament, as it was studied in the Justice Committee, and as it was ultimately passed in the House of Commons. In fact, mental illness was explicitly excluded in the eligibility criteria for MAID under Bill C7, which is why the Justice Committee did not review it. Now, at the final stage in the parliamentary process, the Liberals want to dramatically expand this bill and rush it through with virtually zero scrutiny from members of Parliament. This is, of course, absolutely unacceptable. And let me be clear, under the Liberal government's amendment, medically assisted death will automatically be expanded to cover those with mental illness in 24 months, should the Liberals have their way. Parliamentarians were expected to look at this issue under the review of the original MAID legislation, Bill C14, which has been delayed now, this review, by nearly a year. Now, the Liberals are predetermining the outcome of that review by stating medical death will proceed for those with mental illness. It's simply a matter of how we will proceed. At a time where Canadians often struggle to access mental health services, it sends a dire message that the lives of those struggling with mental illness are not valued by this government. The Liberals plan to expand Bill C7 in a way that puts more vulnerable Canadians at risk, with a bill that has received virtually zero scrutiny from the House of Commons. It is critical that members of Parliament hear directly from Canadians on this significant change to medically assisted death. And that is why we are facilitating in part here today this discussion. I plan to move a motion at the Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights to hold meetings to hear from Canadians on this sudden shift by the Liberal government. It is not reasonable to expect members of Parliament to simply rubber stamp such a significant bill on a matter of life and death. Parliamentarians must get this right, and I'm urging MPs from all parties to support the Conservative amendment that would eliminate the government's plan to extend medically assisted death being offered to those with mental illness. Thank you very much. And I want to thank the participants here today. And for our first participant, Savannah Beach, I will turn the floor over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, there's one big reason that I'm here, and it's to speak for people who are at risk and may not have a voice right now of a bill that may allow people with mental illness to receive assisted suicide. The fact is that people are very resilient. People with mental illness are incredibly resilient. They fight day to day, and they do recover. Some would say that I'm a miracle. You will never imagine how dark the brain can go, a place of torment in the mind and a relentless whispers of suicide over and over again that just don't end. You'll never understand a bipolar brain, well, unless you have one. And I was 19 in the hospital when I found out that a machine could diagnose that. They could tell me what illness I had. Bipolar was not the wish that I wanted for my life. Depression was one of the hardest things to get out of. I attempted suicide, and luckily, so luckily, my IQ, due to the illness, was too low to understand that I couldn't swallow 60 pills all at once. I am very grateful that I am alive. I'm truly blessed that I did not die when I first wanted to. And when I had hope, I got hope a week later. My promise had sorry, I'm so nervous on this thing. My mother made me promise to her that I would start taking medication after that happened. she was so frazzled and said, in fact, that you don't have to live like this. And I am so glad that suddenly I had the ability to understand that in that moment. So within a week, I started taking medication. Within a few days, I had no personality and it completely came back. Within even a few days. So I am a person who truly knows how to love others. From here in this place, I can begin to understand people. I see their true identities, that they may not understand who they are at the time. They may not understand what strength they have at the time when they lose hope. And so what I'm saying is people in those times truly do want to live, but they don't have hope, like me when I was ill. And I'm asking MPs to vote against Bill C7. People suffering from mental illness don't actually want that, but they want hope. Allowing them the option to receive euthanasia doesn't give hope at all. It agrees with them that they are worthless. It provides a way out. And I urge you to vote against Bill C7 on behalf of those who are at risk.
Thank you so much, Savannah, for sharing this morning. Really appreciate that. I will turn it over now to Dr. Bertrand Major.
Oui, bonjour, je m'appelle Bertrand Major. Je suis un médecin psychiatre depuis une trentaine d'années. Je travaille à Joliette, 1 heure au nord de Montréal. Je vais décrire l'histoire d'un patient récemment sous mes soins à l'unité psychiatrique interne de Joliette. Des changements mineurs seront apportés pour conserver la confidentialité. C'est un homme dans la cinquantaine, sans travail depuis une dizaine d'années. Il avait travaillé en tant que préposé aux bénéficiaires 10 ans également. Il était apprécié des patients dont il s'occupait. Depuis 10 ans, il vivait avec sa mère et cette dernière souffre de troubles du caractère, ayant fréquemment tenté de se suicider dans le passé. Sa mère décida de vendre leur maison et d'aller en centre de soins prolongés. Le patient n'avait pas d'autre contact depuis longtemps. Le père est mort et était à la fois négligent et exigeant envers lui. Pas d'enfant, pas de conjointe. C'est un homme qui est très intelligent, curieux intellectuellement. Il souffre par contre d'une vision très négative de la vie. Après la vente de la maison, il dut vivre plusieurs semaines dans son auto pour décider, après mûre réflexion, de se suicider. Il y pensait depuis des années. À 2 reprises, il tenta de s'empoisonner par du monoxyde de carbone, quasiment avec succès la 2e fois. Il fut hospitalisé dans notre unité. Très anxieux et déprimé. Il ne croyait pas qu'on puisse l'aider. Dans un premier temps, les entrevues le rendaient très mal à l'aise car il avait honte de lui, de ce qu'il avait fait. Traité par antidépresseurs, graduellement, il fit des contacts avec d'autres patients. Apprécié des autres, car de bons contacts et serviable, il reconnut avoir été trop près de sa mère dans les dernières années. 2 brefs congés temporaires se passèrent bien. Il aida des étrangers et fut aussi aidé par pur hasard. Contre toute attente, il commença à croire qu'il pouvait vivre une autre sorte de vie et décida de se donner une seconde chance. Congé de l'hôpital après environ 1 mois d'hospitalisation, surpris lui-même de ses progrès. Il veut faire du bénévolat après la résolution de la pandémie et il se sent bien depuis son congé, même si certains jours sont difficiles. Je le répète, ce patient ne croyait pas à l'aide et qu'il pourrait reprendre goût à la vie. Il pensait avoir logiquement pensé qu'il valait mieux mourir que vivre. De simples soins psychiatriques ont changé la donne. Si l'aide médicale à mourir était disponible, je vous l'assure, il était un sérieux candidat. Un candidat comme on en voit beaucoup en Belgique et en Hollande. Ceux qui veulent implanter l'aide médicale à mourir pour nos patients souffrant de troubles mentaux vous trompent, ils se trompent. Pardonnez ma présomption, mais ils ne connaissent pas suffisamment le pouvoir de la main tendue, le pouvoir des bons soins, ni les vertus de l'espérance. L'aide médicale à mourir pour nos patients, c'est une grave erreur. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Dr. Major, and thank you for your presentation. And now I'll turn it over to Wayne Wegner.
Hello. My name's Wayne Wegner. I'm from Soto First Nations, located near North Battleford, Saskatchewan. About 6 years ago, I was going through a tremendously difficult time. In the span of 1 week, the house was going into foreclosure. Okay. In the span of 1 week, my house was going into foreclosure. We found that we had to file for bankruptcy. Our sons got into a car accident and the vehicle was totaled. My father was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and my marriage was falling apart, and we were on the brink of divorce. The following year was the most difficult of my life. At the age of 40, I truly did not know if I could continue to live, nor did I even want to try. I know what it feels like to want to end your life, to walk into the basement, wondering how I could end it all, feelings of hopelessness and despair, believing that there will be no relief from the emotional and mental anguish. But over time, things did improve. My faith in God carried me through the chaos, and I found myself to be stronger on the other end of it. When I consider the possible implications of Bill C-7, it causes me great concern. If the option was available to me in my darkest hour, I don't know if I would have used assisted suicide, but I do know that if you pave the road to that tragic end, there will be more people who needlessly take it. People will take the option if offered it in their most difficult and vulnerable times. But if they are given hope, they will see over time that ending your life is often a permanent solution to temporary problems. This life promises us difficulties. Anyone who's really lived truly knows this. 6 years after this difficult time, I'm still married, thank God, to my beautiful wife, and we have 4 blessings in the form of our children. We're financially stable again, and most of all, I'm at peace and I am happy. It is for these reasons that I am asking politicians to vote against Bill C-7, as it unnecessarily puts people like myself at serious risk. We need to send people to places of hope and not medically assisted death. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wayne, for sharing your story. And finally, I will turn it over to Dr. Stephanie Caffey. Doctor?
Thank you. I'm a family physician with a focused practice in care of the elderly. I work in long-term care, retirement homes, and at a rehabilitation hospital in the Niagara region of Ontario. A couple of months ago, 2 separate patients told me they wanted to die on the same day. They both felt lonely and were suffering from mental and physical pain. They both had diagnoses of clinical depression. I asked these patients to give me a chance. I asked them to allow me to offer palliative care and to treat their depression. Both patients gave me the chance, and most importantly, they gave me time. Just 1 week later, after receiving comprehensive palliative care, both patients clinically improved and were no longer expressing wishes to die. Clinical depression can take weeks, months, or years to successfully treat. Many relapses and remissions, countless counseling sessions, and various medical treatments can help a person improve over time. Giving up on patients by offering MAID when they are at their lowest and most challenging period of their lives is not good medicine. It is crucial that you as MPs vote against the amendments proposed by the Senate because mental illness can be treated. MAID is not the standard of care for depression. I have worked with many patients who at one point in their lives have had a suicide attempt or expressed wishes to die, only to come back to me weeks, months, or even years later, saying that they no longer felt that way and we're so glad someone helped them and gave them hope. Treatments for mental illness can take much longer than 90 days to be successful. When I refer a patient to a psychiatrist, it may even take more than 90 days for my patient just to receive an initial appointment. Good palliative care is not accessible to all Canadians. Making these amendments to MAID so widely available when comprehensive palliative care is not available to over half of our population in Canada is not acceptable. I ask you once again to please vote against the proposed Senate amendments to Bill C7. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Caffey, and thank you to each and every one of you for joining us here today and sharing your very valuable experience. I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Garnett Genuis, for closing remarks.
Well, thank you very much, Rob. I want to salute your work and in particular salute the courage of the people who are here, survivors and caregivers who have such an important message. And I hope that parliamentarians from all parties will listen to these stories. Many parliamentarians likely have stories in their own communities, their own families that really resonate with what has been said. La question de la facilitation du suicide chez les personnes aux prises avec des problèmes de santé mentale n'a pas été débutée auparavant, n'a pas été examinée par un comité de la Chambre des communes et serait dévastatrice pour ceux qui souffrent. The issue of suicide facilitation for those struggling with mental health challenges has not been previously debated, has not been considered by House of Commons committee, and would be devastating to those who are suffering. Imagine going to your doctor or a psychiatrist or a member of your own family in the midst of pain and suffering, looking for help, and instead being offered death. Imaginez aller voir votre médecin ou un psychiatre ou un membre de votre propre famille au milieu de la douleur et de la souffrance personnelle, chercher de l'aide et se voir offrir à la place la mort. We are committed to standing with the most vulnerable potential victims of this legislation, and we believe that history, justice, and the Canadian people are on our side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Garnett. And with that, I'll open up the lines if there's any questions from the media.
Yes, we'll now start the question period. Nous allons maintenant commencer la période des questions. As usual, one question, one follow-up. Comme d'habitude, une question et une question de suivi. Please identify yourself before asking your question. S'il vous plaît, vous identifiez avant de poser votre question. Opérateur, est-ce qu'on peut avoir la première question, s'il vous plaît?
Thank you. Merci. Please press star 1 at this time if you have a question. S'il vous plaît, appuyez sur étoile 1 maintenant pour toute question. La première question, the first question is from Hélène Buzetti, les coop de l'information. Please go ahead. Your line is open. Votre ligne est ouverte.
Yes, hi, Mr. Moore. I just wanted to know, because I think this bill will be up for debate on Wednesday. I wanted to know what will be the strategy of your party, considering that there is the court deadline of March 26th. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that question. The fact that the government has put themselves in a bind with the court deadline is not something that would cause us to rush our review of this change. If you remember, when this court decision came out, our party had called on the government to appeal the decision so that we would have uniformity and know the constitutional bounds which we had to deal with MAID. Instead, rather than defend its own recently passed legislation, the government introduced Bill C7. And this amendment that's come from the Senate and is endorsed by the Liberal government is a complete departure. In fact, it's a brand new bill. So we have to do our jobs to protect vulnerable Canadians, and that means studying this, debating it in the House of Commons. So we've moved an amendment to strike this clause that would allow mental illness to be an eligible factor for Bill C7 and allow it to be an eligible factor for assisted dying. We're hoping that parliamentarians will join us and support our amendment.
So I understand your point that an appeal to the Supreme Court should have been better, but there is no such appeal, and the court deadline of March 26 stands, and the court said this is the last one. After that, the previous ruling will apply. So I'm just wondering, what do you think about the situation that could occur in Quebec after March 26, where there will be no boundaries for this new power, and even cases of mental health could also be dealt with because there will be no law preventing it?
Well, actually, I mean, I know that's what the minister would like people to believe, but if they've already asked for 4 extensions and have received it each time, we're not going to allow the government to pressure us when it comes to this very expansive, which would put Canada really in a very different place when it comes to assisted death, offering that to people that are struggling with mental illness. So the fact of the matter is the Quebec court decision applies only in Quebec, and it would not be lawless or no rules. There are rules around assisted dying in Quebec. What it would mean is that those whose death is not reasonably foreseeable would be allowed to access the MAID regime with the safeguards that are currently in place. And in the rest of Canada, the law would be as it is today. So we don't buy the government's argument. I know they use this to pressure us to try to pass their legislation, but we haven't even begun debate on this new change to Bill C-7. And in fact, by adding mental illness, they've created a brand new bill. I've spoke to many members of Parliament, and I know from different parties that even those that supported Bill C-7 in its previous form are absolutely opposed to adding this Senate amendment for mental illness. So we have to do our jobs, and we're not going to allow them to pressure us in any way, shape, or form.
Opérateur, est-ce qu'on pourrait avoir la prochaine question? Next question, please.
Thank you. Merci. Please press star 1 at this time if you have a question. S'il vous plaît, appuyez sur étoile 1 maintenant pour toute question. There are no questions registered at this time. Il n'y a plus de questions pour le moment.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. We appreciate your participation today, and have a great day and a great week.
This concludes the press conference. Ceci met fin à la conférence de presse. Merci beaucoup.